The Nightingale Pledge is sworn by all nurses and binds them to do no harm. And of course, there are many in the medical field who go above and beyond the call of duty. But as the ultimate betrayal, some nurses violate this code of conduct in the worst possible ways. These medical professionals do irreparable harm to their patients. Dubbed the angels of death, they leave a trail of damage and loss. The only thing that unites all angels of death is their desire to kill people. People they are meant to be helping. People that entrust these professionals with their health. Niels Hogel was one of these angels. He decided to follow in his family's footsteps and become a nurse like his father and grandmother. But, unlike his relatives, he would use a workplace to satisfy his thirst for death. And by the time his world came crashing down around him, Niels would become known as the most prolific serial killer in the history of modern Germany, with a confirmed death toll of 300 victims. With a perfectly normal childhood, one where he was raised without violence, what motivated him to commit such heinous acts? Niels Hogel's story has a similar grim blueprint to a video I did earlier on Dr. Shipman, also known as Dr. Death. If you haven't watched it, there is a link in the description. The only country synonymous with pretzels, beer, and luxury automobiles is Germany. This diverse country has many attractions. Not only is it the economic powerhouse of the European Union, but its combination of old world charm and modern urban cities make it an ideal destination for travellers. With a wide array of food, accommodation, and drink options, Germany is traditionally less expensive to travel to than its European counterparts. Wilhelmshaven, a town on Germany's North Sea coast, is where this tragic story begins. Niels Hogel was born on the 30th of December 1976. They were the picture-perfect Catholic household. A father who was a nurse, a mother who worked as a paralegal, and an older sister who grew up to become a dental assistant. For all intents and purposes, Niels' early life was like any other typical family. However, the first sign of trauma in the family came when Niels was 11, as his parents briefly split. It appeared to have a profound effect on his young mind. He developed fears and insecurities. His performance at school reflected his insecurities, as teachers noticed a considerable decline in his grades. The teachers were concerned because Niels was a student who consistently got A's in class. He hit a low when he assumed the mantle of class clown, a role guaranteed to bring him some of the attention he craved. Niels decided at 16 that he wanted to become a firefighter, but discovered he suffered from vertigo and entertained the thoughts of being a doctor, but found the study too difficult. He dropped out of school shortly before his college exams before becoming a nurse like his father. He passed the nursing exams with mediocre results, and in 1999 he started at the highly regarded heart surgery intensive care unit of the Oldenburg Clinic. Niels struggled early on with the demands of the work, describing the first surgery he assisted on as a traumatizing experience. He went on to develop depression and anxiety and began to drink more as a result. An attention seeker from birth, Niels used his access to potentially lethal drugs in an attempt to play the hero. Unfortunately, as the story unfolded, he quickly assumed the role of an insane villain. The plot twist happened in February in the year 2002. It was the year of his first known murder. He injected a patient and attempted to revive them without success. Before long, there was a spike in resuscitations and deaths, totaling 35 patients. This grim stat caught the attention of the hospital. In August 2001, doctors and the hospital's administration held a meeting to address the rise in incidents. Niels panicked. He thought he was caught. He called in sick for the next 3 weeks, and only 2 patients in that hospital ward died during that period. Certainly that should have been assigned to his supervisors. But shortly after his return, he was transferred to the anesthesiologist unit at the hospital. A year later, Oldenburg's head physician confronted Niels after multiple patients under Niels' care had been found in life-threatening conditions for seemingly inexplicable reasons. However, instead of calling the police, Niels was given a choice. He could resign from his position with 3 months of severance pay, or he could take another job within the hospital where he would not be allowed to provide medical care for patients. Niels resigned, and out of the deal even received a glowing letter of recommendation from the hospital's director of nursing. In the letter, Niels was praised for his circumspect, diligent, and autonomous work ethic, as well as performing prudently and in objectively correct manner in critical situations. In December 2002, Niels took that reference letter and landed a job less than 25 miles away at the Delmenhorst Clinic, where he would resume his grisly practice within a week of starting his new job. His reference gave no indication that officials at his former hospital had grown deeply suspicious about the number of deaths while Niels was on duty, or that they had banned him from contact with patients and effectively pushed him out. Initially, Niels' colleagues held him in high regard, but as emergencies and fatalities due to arrhythmia or sudden decrease in blood pressure shot up while he was on duty, their suspicions grew and they began avoiding him. They started referring to him as Resuscitation Rambo. But his grim practices soon began to attract attention, with a co-worker noting down all of the deaths and resuscitations that took place while he was on duty. In just one weekend, the worker noted there were 14 resuscitations to 5 patients. In 2003 and 2004, the death rate in the intensive care unit was about twice as high as in previous years. The consumption of the drug gilaritamol, his preferred killing tool, was 7 times higher than usual. But still, nobody reported the young nurse to authorities or raised concerns. Nearly 3 more years passed before colleagues finally caught Niels in the act. He was standing over a lung cancer patient, Dieter Maas. His life support system had been switched off, and in the trash lay 4 empty vials of medication not prescribed for him. They quickly took a blood sample and sent it for tests. The next day, the patient was dead. When the test results showed a dangerously high dose of heart medication, the doctor and nurse in charge met to discuss the situation, but they allowed Niels to finish his shift. In those hours, 67-year-old Renat Roper became his final victim. The extensive police investigation that followed these allegations examined all deaths at the hospital between 2003 and 2005, revealing that the number of deaths at the Delmenhorst Clinic had doubled during Niels' employment there. In 2005, 73% of deaths could be connected to Niels' work schedule. These findings were subsequently forwarded to the Oldenburg District Attorney's Office. In December 2006, Niels was sentenced to 5 years in prison and an employment ban for equal length for attempted voluntary manslaughter. A joint plaintiff appealed the verdict, and a higher court subsequently reversed it. In June 2008, Niels was then given a 7.5-year prison sentence and a lifelong employment ban. As the news spread, the number of questions increased. German authorities expanded their investigations and exhumed dozens of bodies to test them for the cocktail of drugs he administered to his victims. The revelations that came was unlike anything anyone expected. Over the course of nearly a decade and multiple waves of investigation, the result found that Niels had murdered more than 300 people under his care. During additional hearings and trials in 2015, he admitted to injecting the arrhythmic drug into patients to cause cardiac arrest. The seriousness of his crimes led the German court to put him behind bars for good. Niels, meanwhile, apologized to the friends and families of those he hurt. I would like to sincerely apologize to every single individual for all that I have subjected them to over the years. His sincerity was questioned by many of the victims' families. This was backed up by allegations that he only acted out his remorse to help bolster his defense in court. A psychiatrist expert witness said during the trial that while the accused nurse had displayed traits of noticeable personality disorders, such as a lack of shame, guilt, and empathy, they were not so severe as to nullify responsibility. The one key, unanswered but deeply concerning question that rises above all is how Niels got away with it for so long. Some staff members considered him a bad luck charm, since so many patients under his care required life-saving emergency measures. Criticism firmly focused on the staff of the 2 hospitals where Niels worked. Nobody seemed to intervene or blow the whistle on Niels' 5-year killing spree. Staff from the hospital in Oldenburg who testified said they had been absolutely ignorant to the killer's actions, while colleagues from the Delmenhorst Hospital admitted they'd been suspicious about him. The course of events that took place is symbolic of the failure of those responsible for the completely erroneous assessment of actual facts and the tragic result that ensued for the patients. The police investigation came about only after years of pressure from family members, which led to the trial. In terms of motivation to commit such heinous acts, Niels himself explained that he had a perfectly normal, protected childhood. He explained that his upbringing was free of violence and that both his grandmother and father were once nurses. Now I sit here fully convinced that I want to give every relative an answer. I am really sorry. The only honest explanation Niels could provide, besides the apology, was that the mundanity of repetition and environment forced him to seek out alternative excitement. However, psychiatrists concluded that Niels was narcissistic and reveled in playing God.